Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to be talking about the situation surrounding Hawaii football out of the Mountain West League with the realignment stuff. What's going on? They've got a weird stadium situation. You can take a look at this. With $400 million new Aloha Stadium to open in 2028. That's the recent rumor. That is kind of a precarious deal if you guys know how stadium building processes work. I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to a new Aloha Stadium, but they do have renderings. This has been something that's been in the works for multiple years. Right now, if you don't know, Hawaii is playing at the Ching Complex with a track. Now, they are renovating it, adding more stands, but that's just not going to suffice when it comes to an FBS level stadium. And they are trying to get the new stadium. We'll see if they actually break ground in 2024. The idea that you're going to have to, be at this complex through the next 5 years. And that's best case scenario. Best case scenario, they build the new Aloha Stadium in 2028. It doesn't help that Hawaii last year took a major downtrend. This was a team that won 10 games back in 2019. They were decent. They were slightly above average when you look at FBS. 2020, they go 5-4, not bad. 2021, they make a bowl game at 6-6, then lose the bowl game. And then last year, they really struggled. This year, it's not expected to be much better. I do think Hawaii and some of these other Mountain West schools are in kind of a weird position. Now, the Mountain West did release a statement on realignment right when all of this was going down, saying all the teams were aligned, but there is an option possibly if all the teams come together, they could remove, one of their own teams from the league depending on if they want Oregon State and Washington State. A lot goes into this, but I do think they're going to have to get some shovels into the ground on this new stadium. And I realize they're saying it's going to happen by 2028, but this is a project that's been delayed multiple times. $400 million is no easy feat, and it seems like this program is kind of on the downtrend right now, currently playing at a very unattractive stadium. I've got my doubts when it comes to the future of Hawaii football. You would think with the luxury being in Hawaii, maybe that would attract some recruits. Certainly, some of the players from California, you would think possibly, but they just need the right coach. I mean, look at Colorado, and what happened with them once they got Deion Sanders. I'm not saying they're going to have this crazy turnaround, but they're immediately relevant. Now, are they relevant because of the program prestige of Colorado? No. This is a team that went 1-11, and with Hawaii, it just seems like they're not going to be able to attract that coach for their foreseeable future based on their current stadium situation. If they're going to have to play here for the next 5 years, I don't really know what the future of Hawaii football is when it comes to the Mountain West. Certainly, this is not a team you wouldn't think. The idea is, could the Pac-4 rebuild by taking some of the Mountain West teams, by taking some of the American teams? Hawaii would not be on that list, so you would think if the Mountain West gets sniped, kind of like the American Conference did when the Big 12 came calling, the Mountain West would immediately get watered down, and it would be an even lower tier conference, and you would have to have probably several FCS teams, honestly, come into that league, and it would just be completely watered down and even worse than it currently is. But when it comes to the future of Hawaii football, guys, it is something to look at. I don't want to sound the alarm on it or anything, but, I'm not saying they're going to be reduced to FCS or anything like that, but right now, based on their stadium situation, they are, let's just put it bluntly, they're not attractive. If you're playing at this complex for the next 5 years, we don't even know. I know it's been approved, $400 million. We've heard that before. I am very wary on this project until they actually get a shovel into the ground. The idea that you're going to come out in May of 2023 and say the stadium's going to be open by 2028, well, what does that put the construction timeline on? Do you start the construction in 2024 or 2025? Because theoretically, for a stadium like this with a capacity of 25,000, this thing should be built in 2.5 years at the most. So it's just a little wary timeline with Hawaii and what's going on there. You know, you don't want to see that program get left behind, but it's kind of a weird situation right now. So I did want to talk about Hawaii football when it comes to that. And then the other thing I wanted to discuss, well, a few things. Who remembers this? We're going to talk about realignment, but I just want to talk legends and leaders. And honestly, looking back on this is pretty evenly balanced. I would probably move Wisconsin to the legends category, though, to completely balance it, because Michigan State has not been good. Iowa's been And it definitely seems like the leaders, because of Ohio State, Penn State, and Wisconsin, are better. But the Legends leaders, I mean, it's kind of fair, honestly. Obviously, we're not doing divisions anymore. I'm sure divisions are just, you know, that's the whole idea. Will Ohio State and Michigan have to face each other back to back? There was a rumor, or it was a story that Ryan Day said earlier in the summer. He didn't want, you know, the Ohio State-Michigan game to be the last game of the season because they could potentially face each other in the conference championship. 5 Mountain West programs that make the best Pac-12 expansion targets. Now, I'm not going to show any of these because the article was it had a bunch of ads in it and it was hard to, you know, screenshot. But UNLV was in here. Colorado State was in here. They've got a very nice TV market. Their TV market is ranked 16th. I believe also when it comes to the Mountain West, obviously San Diego State, one of the teams that people are going to be targeting. Does San Diego State, you know, wait to go to... This is an interesting hypothetical. Would San Diego State wait for a Big 12 invitation, or would they try and form or rebuild the Pac-4? Because I don't see any scenario where the entire mountain... Yeah, this is just impossible. There's no way the entire Pac-4 merges with the Mountain West, because the Pac-4 wants to try and keep their Power 5 status, and there's no way they would keep any type of Power 5 status if 12 Mountain West teams join their league and it becomes a 16-team league. You have 12 group of 5 teams and 4 Power 5 teams. You cannot call yourself a Power 5 conference in that scenario. But if you kind of pick off the best teams from the American, the best teams from the Mountain West, why would those teams do it? Well, the reason they would do it is because if they're able to swing it and say we're still a Power 5 league, all of those teams get significant added benefits that they would not get in the group of 5. Now, the TV contract wouldn't be that much better, and you would be looking at buyouts, but it might work. The best case scenario, I think, right now for the Mountain West is just adding Oregon State and Washington State, and maybe also Cal. But I don't think Cal would join the Mountain West right now. Both Cal and Stanford are still trying to get into either the Big Ten or the ACC. There's a lot of speculation. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? They're making one last push. But whether it happens this offseason, next offseason, I think inevitably Stanford will be somewhere, you would figure, whether it's the Big Ten or the ACC, but they should be joining a Power 4 conference to add context to it. I mean, Stanford already could have been in a Power 4 conference if they really wanted to with the Big 12. They declined it. But right now, I would say Mountain West, the best option for them would be just adding Washington State and Oregon State. And that would obviously not be a good scenario for both Washington State and Oregon State. But at the end of the day, we're running out of teams here. You know, we're running out of places for you to go. This is a pretty cool graph. This is Power Conference comparison based off of all the recent realignment stuff. So this is up to date right now. Although, you know what? Imagine Stanford and Cal join the ACC right now. Then it's not up to date. But no, this is up to date. And you can see the one thing to look at when it comes to this, and these rankings are compiled since the college football playoff began, I believe. So this is since 2014 to current day. The key thing to note here is if you just look at the top 5 or 6 teams in each conference. So look at the SEC. They've got teams ranked 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 12, 14. Florida is 14th. I'm not sure about these. Since the college football playoff era started, that's interesting. And then you look at the Big Ten, 2, 7, 10, 11, 15, maybe because of Kyle Trask. That's a crazy rating to me. But I know these are not, this is not based off a resume. It's not based off of wins, losses. This is based off of your power ranking. Technically, you could have a team go 7-5 and they could still have a top 15 power ranking. I understand that. But still, that surprises me. But my overall point here is if you take a look at the top 5 or 6 teams, the Big Ten and the SEC just blow everyone out of the water. I mean, look at the ACC. They've got Clemson at 3, and then the next team is 24. Now, obviously, FSU should improve their ranking this year because they're probably going to be a top 10 team, but I'm just saying, in general, it's not even close. And then even the new Big 12, you've got Utah, Oklahoma State. It's a solid conference, but there's just no top 10 teams. There's no blue bloods. That's the tough situation there. And then kind of the free agents all the way on the far right, who could any of these Power 4 leagues pick off any of these teams? Notre Dame, that's another story for another day. I think Notre Dame eventually will be in the Big Ten. It's too much money, but we can debate that. People will be like, no, they just want to be independent. They don't know. They have a deal with the ACC. The whole thing's very complicated, but they're ranked 6th, obviously. Boise State at 25. Very good football program. Very good. Unfortunately, very small TV market. And that's why a conference like the Big 12 would not want them. But how about 25th overall since the beginning of the playoff? Very impressive. Stanford at 35. But yeah, you have to add context to that. So Stanford is going to be a lot lower than that going forward. That's mainly based off of the Christian McCaffrey days. What do they have? Kevin Hogan? Remember when Kevin Hogan was on the Browns? But yeah, they also had, David Shaw. He was kind of an up-and-coming coach, and obviously Stanford's going to be a lot lower than that. Washington State, that's pretty respectable at number 40. Memphis at number 41. That's why I've thought Memphis, if they get that big stadium renovation, they might be wanted by the ACC if the ACC loses Clemson and FSU. James Madison, very impressive, but they're not joining any of these conferences. App State, not joining anyone. California at 57. So California, it's not horrible, but you also have to remember California does not have a good basketball program. Stanford does not have a good basketball program either. Air Force is sitting at 64. San Diego State at 65, but they do have a very good basketball program. How about Toledo out of the MAC at 68? And then you can see some of the other teams there. Oregon State all the way down at 76, but we would expect them to improve that this year. But those are just the rankings. I thought that was just something interesting to look at. Oregon State mailbag is and see, here we go with the abbreviations. When it comes to the, OSU thing, I'll put it this way, and I'll explain it right now. So Oregon State's abbreviation, this is how it was explained to me, and I am a college football expert. So Oregon State's abbreviation is ORST. Oklahoma State's abbreviation is OKST. Ohio State's abbreviation is OSU. That's how the abbreviations work. So that is not the correct abbreviation. It should be ORST. And that's just the reality of that, But either way, that's anecdotal. We won't talk about it. But you can see Oregon State, Oregon, is the rivalry dead? Yes, the rivalry is dead. Oregon does not care. Oregon is not going to be scheduling. Think about it. Oregon State is getting better too. So I definitely think Oregon is getting out of this rivalry at the right time. It's interesting because we just saw a similar situation happen with Pittsburgh and Penn State, to where Penn State is very clearly a better program than Pittsburgh, but for all intents and purposes, Penn State backed out of the rivalry because they were scared they might lose to Pittsburgh. Let's just call it what it is. And it's one of those things where Penn State does have a lot more to lose than Pitt, because Pitt's normally going to lose 4 or 5 games every season. They did have that nice year with Kenny Pickett, but in general, Penn State was like, we're not going to do this. If we beat Pittsburgh, we should beat them. And then if we lose, it's a crazy story. It's a no-win situation. And I think TCU got a little in over their head by, coming out and saying we're canceling our, rivalry game with SMU every year. I think TCU was overrating themselves. They had a lucky Cinderella run last year where they won a lot of close games late. They very easily could have been an 8-4 football team. And I think they're going to come crashing down to earth this year. Them canceling that series with SMU, that's very ignorant, and that's just disrespectful. And it shows TCU is scared of SMU. And TCU has not been scheduling anyone non-conference ever since Gary Patterson left. It's a disturbing trend, but that's another story for another day. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.